My name is Linda Matthews, and at 66 years old, I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. I was wrong. If you want to hear more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and tell me which city you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. It was Mother's Day morning in Westchester County, New York, and I was sitting in my breakfast nook overlooking the garden that my late husband David and I had planted together 20 years ago. The roses were in full bloom, just like he always planned them to be for this special day. I had set the table for 3 with my best china, the Wedgwood pattern that had been my mother's, because Jessica had promised she would spend the day with me. For 3 months, I had lived for this moment. 3 months since I had wired $25,000 to Jessica's account for her European adventure. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Mom," she had said, her green eyes sparkling with excitement. "Tyler and I want to experience the real Europe before we settle down." Tyler Rodriguez, her boyfriend of 8 months, a struggling artist who somehow always had money for expensive restaurants and designer clothes. The doorbell rang at exactly noon. My heart jumped with anticipation as I smoothed my navy dress, the one Jessica had complimented last Christmas, and hurried to the door. There she stood, my beautiful daughter, her auburn hair catching the spring sunlight, but her expression was distant, almost cold. "Happy Mother's Day, sweetheart," I said, reaching for a hug that she barely returned. "Hi, Mom," she replied, walking past me into the living room without removing her shoes, something I had taught her never to do on my Persian rugs. Tyler followed behind her, wearing ripped jeans and a smirk that made my skin crawl. In his hands were 2 gift bags, one large, one pitifully small. "Mom, we brought gifts," Jessica announced with the enthusiasm of someone announcing a dental appointment. My hands trembled with excitement as I watched her hand Tyler the larger bag first. Inside was a pristine iPhone 15 Pro Max in space, black Chastos, still in its sealed box. My breath caught in my throat. "Tyler needed a new phone for his photography business," Jessica explained matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. Then she handed me the smaller bag. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper that looked like it came from a gas station, was a single metal fork, not even stainless steel, just cheap, cold metal with "Made in China" stamped on the handle. I stared at it, my mind trying to process what I was seeing. 3 months of sending money, 3 months of living on crackers and soup to make sure she had everything she needed in Europe, and this was my Mother's Day gift. "Jessica," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What is this?" She shrugged, settling onto my sofa next to Tyler, who was already unboxing his expensive gift. "Mom, you already have everything. Tyler needs it more than you do." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked around my living room, at the family photos where Jessica smiled from every frame, at the furniture David and I had chosen together, at the life I had built around loving this child. "I don't understand," I managed to say. Tyler laughed, actually laughed. "Mrs. Matthews, it's not about the gift, it's about the thought, right? And Jessica thought you could use a fork. Very practical." That's when Jessica delivered the final blow. "Actually, Mom, there's something else we need to talk about. Tyler and I are moving in together, and we found this amazing apartment in Brooklyn. The deposit is only $8,000, and the first year's rent up front is $36,000. We figured you could help us out." I sat down heavily in David's old armchair, the cheap fork still clutched in my hand. "You want me to pay $44,000 for your apartment? It's an investment in our future," Jessica said. "And honestly, Mom, you're not getting any younger. Wouldn't you rather see your money helping your daughter build a life instead of just sitting in your bank account?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. This wasn't the little girl who used to pick dandelions from our yard and call them sunshine flowers for me. This wasn't the teenager who cried in my arms when her first boyfriend broke her heart. This was a woman who saw me as nothing more than an ATM with gray hair. What Jessica didn't know, as she sat there demanding my money while her boyfriend played with his new phone, was that her poor old mother was far from poor. Hidden in secure accounts and investments that David had carefully structured before his death, I possessed assets worth over $1.2 million, properties in California and Florida, stock portfolios, CDs, and cash that I had accumulated through decades of careful saving and David's brilliant financial planning. I had pretended to struggle financially, not out of deception, but out of a desire to teach Jessica the value of money and hard work. Now I realized she had learned neither. "I need to think about it," I said quietly. Tyler rolled his eyes. "What's to think about? It's family." As they prepared to leave, without even staying for the Mother's Day lunch I had prepared, Jessica kissed my cheek with the warmth of someone kissing a stranger at a networking event. When the door closed behind them, I sat in my empty house, holding a cheap fork and staring at my reflection in the black screen of my old iPhone. For the first time in months, I smiled. It was time to teach my daughter a lesson about the true value of respect, mania, family, and love. The morning after Mother's Day, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt since David's funeral. I made my coffee in the French press he had bought me for our 25th anniversary and sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad, just like he used to do when he was planning our investments. David Matthews had been a brilliant financial advisor before his retirement. What Jessica didn't know was that every penny she thought I was struggling to save had been carefully orchestrated theater. The modest lifestyle, the clipped coupons, the careful budgeting. It had all been part of David's plan to teach our daughter the value of money. "Linda," he had told me during his final weeks at Sloan Kettering, "our biggest mistake was never letting Jessica struggle. She needs to learn that money doesn't grow on trees, even if we planted quite a forest." I walked to our home office, the room Jessica never bothered to enter when she visited, and opened David's old filing cabinet. Inside were folders labeled in his meticulous handwriting: California properties, Florida investments, stock portfolio, Swiss accounts, and its emergency funds. The California folder contained deeds to 2 rental properties in San Diego that brought in $4,500 monthly. David had purchased them in the 1990s when prices were reasonable. Today, they were worth over $800,000 combined. Jessica had no idea they existed. The Florida folder revealed a beachfront condo in Naples that we had visited twice a year until David became ill. The property management company sent monthly reports showing it was consistently booked through Airbnb, generating $3,200 per month. Market value, $425,000. But the real revelation was in the investment portfolio. David's careful stock picks over 30 years had grown into a diversified collection worth $940,000. Blue chip companies, tech stocks he had bought early deal, and municipal bonds that provided steady income. Every month, dividends and interest flowed into accounts Jessica had never heard of. The Swiss account, David's insurance policy as he called it, contained $180,000 in cash. Sometimes, he had explained, you need money that nobody can freeze, question, or track, especially when dealing with family. I sat back in his leather chair, surrounded by evidence of a lifetime of careful planning. My total net worth was $1,247,000, not including my primary residence, worth another $650,000. I was wealthy by any reasonable standard. Yet I had been living like a church mouse, while my daughter treated me like her personal charity case. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Mom, did you think about the apartment money? Tyler found another place too, but we need to decide quick." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Instead, I called Robert Hendricks, the attorney who had handled David's estate. Robert was 68, sharp as a tack, and had been our family lawyer for 15 years. He knew exactly what David and I had been trying to accomplish with Jessica. "Linda," he said when I explained the Mother's Day incident, "David predicted this might happen. He left specific instructions about how to handle Jessica if she became entitled." We met that afternoon in his Park Avenue office. Robert spread out documents across his mahogany conference table like a general planning a campaign. David wanted Jessica to learn respect and gratitude the hard way if necessary, he explained. He set up what he called the education fund, not for her schooling, but for her life schooling. Robert showed me a sealed letter David had written, dated just 3 months before his death. Inside were detailed instructions for what he called Operation Reality Check. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would gradually stop being Jessica's financial safety net, forcing her to confront the real world. Every bill I had been paying, every emergency I had been covering, every convenience I had been providing would slowly disappear. Meanwhile, I would document every lie, every manipulation, every moment of disrespect. The goal, David's letter explained, isn't revenge, it's education. Jessica needs to learn that relationships are built on mutual respect, not financial dependency. She needs to understand that love isn't measured by the size of your bank account, but by the size of your heart. Robert pulled out another folder. David also instructed me to hire a private investigator if this situation arose. He wanted to know exactly how Jessica and Tyler were spending the money you were giving them. The investigator's report, compiled over the past 3 months, made my stomach turn. The $25,000 for Europe had funded first-class flights, 5-star hotels, and luxury shopping sprees. Photos showed Jessica and Tyler at Michelin-starred restaurants in Paris, designer boutiques in Milan, and exclusive clubs in Barcelona. They had spent more in 1 week than I typically spent in 6 months. But the most damning evidence was a series of text messages between Jessica and Tyler that the investigator had legally obtained through social media monitoring. In them, they referred to me as the ATM, joked about my pathetic Mother's Day plans, and discussed strategies for maximizing the old lady's guilt. One message from Tyler particularly stung. "Just keep playing the loving daughter card. She's so desperate for attention she'll pay for anything." Jessica's response: "I know, right? It's almost too easy. She's so lonely since Dad died." I closed the file, my hands shaking not with sadness, but with controlled fury. David had been right. Our daughter had become a stranger, someone who saw love as weakness and generosity as stupidity. "Robert," I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest, "let's begin my husband's education plan, but I want to add a few lessons of my own." Robert smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen since David's funeral. "I was hoping you'd say that." David would be proud. As I drove home to my empty house, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Power. Not the power that comes from money, but the power that comes from knowledge, from planning, and from the absolute certainty that justice was about to be served. That evening, I cooked myself a proper dinner for the first time in months. Salmon with roasted vegetables, a glass of the good wine David had been saving, and for dessert, the sweetest taste of all, anticipation. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jessica. "Mom, the apartment thing is urgent." This time, I responded, "Let me think about it, sweetheart. These are big decisions." I was done thinking. Now it was time to act. The next morning, I sat in Robert's office with a yellow legal pad filled with notes. I had spent the entire night wide awake, not from anxiety, but from the electric thrill of planning. For the first time since David's death, I felt truly alive. "Robert," I began, "I want to understand exactly what David envisioned, but I also want to add my own touches. This isn't just about teaching Jessica a lesson. It's about reclaiming my dignity." Robert opened David's sealed instructions again. "Your husband was very specific. Phase 1. Gradual withdrawal of financial support while documenting all interactions. Phase 2. Investigation and evidence gathering. Phase 3. The revelation and confrontation." "We're already in Phase 2, I noted. "What did David suggest for the actual execution?" Robert smiled with the satisfaction of a man about to reveal a masterpiece. "He wanted you to become forgetful about paying Jessica's bills. Let her phone get shut off. Let her car insurance lapse. Let her credit cards get declined. Meanwhile, you'd start living the life you deserved, traveling, enjoying your money, showing her what she lost through her greed and disrespect. And if she gets desperate, that's when Phase 3 begins. A formal meeting, here in this office, where you reveal your true financial situation and confront her with every documented lie and manipulation." David believed that only when Jessica hit rock bottom would she be capable of genuine change. I took detailed notes as Robert explained the legal protections David had put in place. All my assets were secured in irrevocable trusts that Jessica couldn't contest. My will had been structured to provide for her only if she demonstrated genuine remorse and respect. Most importantly, everything we were about to do was completely legal. David also left funds for what he called operational expenses. Robert continued, pulling out another document: private investigators, security systems, legal fees, and what he termed lifestyle upgrade costs. Basically, money for you to start enjoying life while Jessica learns her lesson. My first call was to Patricia Holmes, the private investigator Robert recommended. Patricia was a former FBI agent who specialized in financial fraud and family disputes. She was 62, with silver hair and steel gray eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Matthews," she said when we met at a discreet coffee shop in White Plains, "I've reviewed your daughter's digital footprint. She and Tyler are living well beyond their means, relying entirely on your support. They've been telling friends that you're wealthy but cheap, and that they're working on liberating your money for better uses." Patricia showed me printed screenshots of Jessica's social media posts from Europe, pictures of designer handbags, expensive wines, and luxury hotel suites, all funded by my $25,000. The captions made my blood boil. "Living my best life thanks to family support," and "sometimes you have to train older people to be more generous." "There's more," Patricia continued. "Tyler has been researching your property records online. He knows about your house's value and has been encouraging Jessica to pressure you into either selling it or taking out a home equity loan. For what purpose? They want to start a creative agency together. Tyler's photography and Jessica's marketing background. They've already designed business cards and contacted potential clients, promising services they can't deliver without significant upfront investment. I felt that familiar surge of controlled anger. They weren't just taking my money. They were planning to take more, much more, all while convincing themselves they were entitled to it. Patricia handed me a comprehensive surveillance plan. "We'll monitor their communications, track their spending, and document every interaction you have with them. Everything legal, everything admissible in court, if it comes to that." My next stop was First National Bank, where I had done business for 30 years. I met with Margaret Chen, the branch manager, to restructure my accounts according to David's plan. "Mrs. Matthews," Margaret said, "your husband was very thorough in his instructions. We're going to move your primary assets into accounts that Jessica has never seen. The account she knows about will maintain a balance of exactly 2,847. Enough to seem real, but not enough to fund her lifestyle. What about the automatic payments I've been making for her? We'll set up a system where those payments start failing due to insufficient funds. Your daughter will get notices, but she'll think it's because you're running out of money, not because we've moved your money to secure accounts." Margaret showed me the new account structure. My checking account would appear nearly empty, while my real money sat safely in accounts Jessica couldn't access or even know existed. Every transaction would be documented, every declined payment recorded, every desperate phone call from Jessica logged for evidence. "There's one more thing your husband arranged," Margaret added. "He set up what he called the reality account, $50,000 designated specifically for you to start enjoying life. He wanted you to take trips, buy nice things, treat yourself well while Jessica learns her lesson. His instructions were very clear. Linda deserves to be happy, not just generous." That afternoon, I visited David's old friend Thomas Morrison, who ran the property management company that handled our rental properties. Thomas was 70, a retired real estate developer who had known David since college. "Linda," Thomas said, welcoming me into his downtown office, "David told me this day might come. He was worried about Jessica's attitude toward money and family." Thomas showed me detailed reports on our California and Florida properties. The rental income was steady, the properties were appreciating, and everything was managed professionally. Most importantly, Jessica had no idea these properties existed. David's instructions were specific, Thomas explained. "If you ever needed to demonstrate your financial independence, I should prepare detailed reports showing your true net worth." He wanted Jessica to understand that her poor old mother was actually a successful businesswoman. Thomas also revealed something I hadn't known. David had been quietly helping other elderly parents deal with entitled adult children. He had developed a network of professionals, lawyers, investigators, financial advisors, and therapists who specialized in what he called tough love financial education. Your husband believed that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is allowing them to fail, Thomas explained. Jessica needs to learn that respect can't be bought, and love isn't measured by the size of your bank account. My final meeting was with Dr. Sarah Williams, a family therapist David had consulted before his death. Dr. Williams specialized in financial boundary setting and family manipulation. Mrs. Boitio Matthews, she said, in her comfortable office overlooking Central Park, your husband was concerned that Jessica had developed what we call entitlement syndrome, the belief that she deserved financial support without reciprocal respect or gratitude. Dr. Williams explained the psychology behind Jessica's behavior. Adult children who become financially dependent often develop resentment toward their parents. Even while demanding continued support, they convince themselves they're entitled to the money, which allows them to justify their disrespectful behavior. What's the solution? Natural consequences. Jessica needs to experience the real world without your financial cushion. Only then can she develop genuine appreciation for your sacrifices and support. Dr. Williams also helped me prepare psychologically for what was coming. Jessica will likely become angry, manipulative, and even cruel when her support system disappears. She'll try guilt, threats, and emotional blackmail. You need to be prepared for the worst behavior you've ever seen from her. That evening, I sat in my living room with a comprehensive plan spread across David's old desk. The strategy was elegant and thorough. Phase 1 would begin immediately. I would stop paying Jessica's bills while appearing to struggle financially myself. Patricia would monitor and document everything. I would start living better, traveling, dining out, enjoying my money, while Jessica experienced real consequences. Phase 2 would involve Jessica's inevitable desperation. When she called begging for money, I would express concern about my own financial situation. When she demanded explanations, I would seem confused and overwhelmed, all while Patricia documented every manipulative tactic she used. Phase 3 would be the revelation. When Jessica hit rock bottom, when she finally showed genuine remorse instead of entitled anger, I would invite her to Robert's office for a discussion about my estate planning. There, surrounded by evidence of her behavior and documents proving my real financial situation, I would give her the education of her lifetime. But first, I had a phone call to make. Jessica, I said when she answered, about that apartment money you need. Oh, thank God, Mom. I was worried you were having second thoughts. Well, sweetheart, I checked my accounts today, and I'm not sure I can afford to help right now. Maybe if you could wait a few months. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, Mom, we can't wait. We'll lose the apartment. Can't you borrow against the house or something? I don't think that's wise at my age, honey. Mom, you're being ridiculous. It's just money. What else are you saving it for? I smiled, looking at the comprehensive financial reports spread across my table. You're right, Jessica. What else am I saving it for? I'll talk to you soon. After I hung up, I poured myself a glass of David's best wine and raised it toward his photograph on the mantel. Here's to education, my love. Class is about to begin. The first bill to Bekdicht bounce was Jessica's car insurance. I received the notification from Margaret at the bank on a Tuesday morning. Payment declined, insufficient funds. According to our plan, my checking account now showed a balance of $2,847, barely enough to cover my own basic expenses. Jessica called within hours, her voice tight with panic. Mom, my car insurance was cancelled. They said your payment didn't go through. I injected just the right amount of confusion into my voice. Oh my goodness, that's strange. Let me check my account. Oh dear, it does seem a bit low this month. I'm not sure what happened. What do you mean low? You always have money for my insurance. Well, sweetheart, things have been tight since your father died. The funeral expenses, the house maintenance, my medical bills. I'm doing my best. There was a long pause. I could practically hear her calculating in her head. Mom, can't you transfer some money from your savings? What savings, Wes dear? Most of that went to pay for your European trip. Another pause. Longer this time. Mom, are you telling me you're broke? I wouldn't say broke, Jessica. Just careful. Maybe we could both tighten our belts a little. She hung up without saying goodbye. Patricia called me that evening with her report. Jessica immediately called Tyler after your conversation. They're panicking because they put down a deposit on that Brooklyn apartment using credit cards, expecting your money to pay them off. Tyler's exact words were, "The old lady can't be broke. She's just being manipulative." And Jessica's response? "She's convinced you're hiding money. She's planning to come to your house this weekend to help you organize your finances. I think she intends to go through your papers." Perfect. David's plan was working exactly as he had predicted. That Friday, I prepared for Jessica's visit like a theater director preparing for opening night. I moved all evidence of my real financial situation to a safety deposit box. I scattered past due notices around my desk, fake ones that Robert's office had created to look authentic. I even practiced looking worried in the mirror. Jessica arrived Saturday morning with Tyler in tow, both of them wearing expressions of grim determination. She hugged me with the enthusiasm of someone hugging a stranger at a funeral. "Mom, we're here to help," she announced, marching straight to the home office. "You clearly can't manage your finances alone anymore." Tyler was already rifling through the papers on David's desk. "Mrs. Matthews, where do you keep your bank statements?" I played my role perfectly, wringing my hands with apparent anxiety. "Oh, I'm not sure you should be looking at those. They're quite personal." "Mom, don't be ridiculous. We're family." Jessica was opening filing cabinets, pulling out folders. "How else can we help if we don't understand your situation?" They spent 2 hours going through my carefully prepared financial theater. The fake past due notices, the checking account statement showing 2027, the mortgage payment reminders, the utility bills marked final notice, all props in David's elaborate educational play. "Jesus Christ," Tyler muttered, adding up numbers on his phone. "She really doesn't have anything." Jessica sank into David's chair, looking genuinely distressed for the first time in years. But I noticed her distress wasn't about my welfare. It was about her own financial prospects. "Mom, why didn't you tell me things were this bad?" I sat down across from her, channeling every ounce of maternal vulnerability I could muster. "I didn't want to worry you, sweetheart. You were having such a wonderful time in Europe. I thought maybe I could figure something out." "But the house," Tyler interjected. "This place has to be worth something." "Well, yes, but it's my home. I can't just sell my home." Jessica and Tyler exchanged a look that made my skin crawl. I could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. "Mom," Jessica said carefully, "maybe it's time to consider downsizing. You don't need all this space, and the money from selling could secure your future." "But where would I live?" "There are some very nice senior living communities," Tyler suggested, with the confidence of someone who had clearly researched this topic. "Much more appropriate for someone your age." I stared at them both, letting the full implications of their suggestions sink in. They wanted me to sell my home, the home David and I had built together, where I had raised Jessica, where every room held 40 years of memories, so I could move to an institution while they took control of the proceeds. "I need to think about this," I said quietly. "Of course, Mom, but don't take too long. The real estate market is really good right now." After they left, I sat in my living room and called Patricia. "Did you get everything? Every word? The house is completely wired for audio now. Jessica's pressure tactics, Tyler's financial calculations, their discussion about senior living facilities. It's all recorded and completely legal since it's your own home. What's their next move?" Based on their conversation in the driveway, which our long-range microphones picked up, they're going to research senior living costs and come back next weekend with specific proposals. Tyler used the phrase, "We need to move fast," before she changes her mind. That week, I began phase 2 of David's plan with enthusiasm I hadn't felt in years. On Monday, I went car shopping and purchased a brand new Mercedes C-Class sedan, paid in cash from one of my hidden accounts. When Jessica called that afternoon, I was careful not to mention my new car. "How are you feeling about our conversation, Mom?" "Oh, I'm still thinking, dear. These are big decisions." "I know, Mom, but waiting won't make them easier." Tyler and I looked at some really nice senior communities. There's one in Westchester that has activities and meal plans. You'd love it. On Tuesday, I booked a week-long cruise to the Caribbean, leaving from Manhattan the following month. The suite cost $4,500, charged to my reality account, as David had instructed. Wednesday brought a visit to Bergdorf Goodman, where I purchased a new wardrobe worthy of my actual financial status. The saleswoman, Catherine, was delighted to help a customer who could afford quality without checking price tags. "Mrs. Matthews," she said as I tried on a beautiful Eileen Fisher suit, "you have excellent taste. This color is perfect for your complexion." For the first time in years, I looked in the mirror and saw not just David's widow or Jessica's mother, but Linda Matthews, a successful, intelligent woman who deserved to be treated with respect. Thursday evening, Jessica called in tears. "Mom, my phone is being shut off tomorrow. The payment didn't go through again." I was sitting in my new Mercedes in the parking lot of an expensive restaurant where I had just enjoyed a magnificent dinner alone. "Oh dear, let me check. Yes, the account is still quite low. Maybe you could pay it yourself this month, just until I get things sorted out." "Pay it myself? Mom, I don't have that kind of money." "Well, sweetheart, maybe you could ask Tyler to help, or perhaps look for a job." The suggestion that she might need to work seemed to physically pain her. "A job, Mom? I'm busy helping you with your financial situation. I don't have time for a job." "Of course, dear, I understand." By Friday, Patricia reported that Jessica and Tyler were fighting constantly. Their credit cards were maxed out from the apartment deposit, Tyler's photography equipment purchases, and their general lifestyle. Without my support, their entire financial house of cards was collapsing. Jessica called her friend Amanda, Patricia reported, and complained that you're being selfish and manipulative by not selling your house. She actually said, and I quote, "Old people are so stubborn about things that don't even matter anymore." That weekend, they returned to my house with printed brochures and a prepared presentation. Jessica had dressed professionally for the occasion, or as professionally as someone could, when their wardrobe consisted entirely of clothes purchased with their mother's money. "Mom, we've done extensive research," she began, spreading glossy brochures across my dining room table. "Sunset Manor has everything you could need: social activities, medical support, transportation services, and best of all, no maintenance worries." Tyler had prepared a financial analysis on his laptop. "If you sell this house at current market value," we got a preliminary assessment, "you'd net about $580,000 after taxes and fees. The senior community costs $3,200 per month, so you'd have enough money to live comfortably for 15 years. I stared at their presentation, marveling at how thoroughly they had planned my life without consulting me. "What happens after 15 years? They exchanged another one of their looks. "Well, Mom," Jessica said carefully, "by then you might need more intensive care anyway." The unspoken implication hung in the air like poison gas. They had calculated exactly how long my money would last, and they were comfortable with me dying on schedule. "I see," I said quietly. "And what would you and Tyler do?" "Well, we'd be nearby to visit, of course, and Tyler's photography business is really taking off. We might be able to help with expenses if needed." It was the most breathtaking display of selfishness I had ever witnessed. They wanted me to sell my home, move to an institution, and live on a carefully calculated budget that would run out in 15 years. Also, they could start their business with money I had earned through 40 years of marriage and careful saving. "This is a lot to consider," I said. "Mom, we can't keep having these conversations forever," Jessica replied with exasperation that barely concealed her desperation. "You need to make a decision. This financial uncertainty is affecting all of us." That evening, I called Dr. Guido Williams for an emergency therapy session. I needed professional support to process what I was experiencing. "Linda," she said, "what you're describing is financial elder abuse in its most classic form. Your daughter and her boyfriend are using your apparent vulnerability to manipulate you into decisions that benefit them exclusively. But she's my daughter. Shouldn't I want to help her? Help, yes. But this isn't help. This is exploitation. They're asking you to sacrifice your home, your independence, and your financial security for their convenience. That's not love, it's predation." Dr. Williams helped me understand that my guilt was misplaced. "You raised Jessica to be independent and self-sufficient. The fact that she chose dependency and manipulation instead isn't your failure. It's hers. And now she needs to learn the consequences of that choice. The following week brought escalation. Jessica's phone was disconnected. Tyler's car was repossessed. And their credit card companies began calling constantly. Patricia's surveillance revealed increasingly desperate conversations between them. She has to have money hidden somewhere, Tyler insisted during one recorded phone call. Rich people don't just go broke. She's testing us. But what if she really doesn't have anything? Jessica replied, sounding genuinely worried for the first time. Then we make the senior living thing happen faster. Once she sells the house, it doesn't matter what she has in the bank. On Wednesday, Jessica appeared at my door unannounced, looking haggard and desperate. She had lost weight. Her hair was unwashed, and she was wearing the same clothes I had seen her in 3 days earlier. Mom, we need to talk, I invited her in, noticing how she looked around the house with new eyes. Not as a daughter visiting her childhood home, but as someone appraising assets. I've been thinking about everything, she began, and I realize how selfish I've been. You shouldn't have to worry about my problems when you're dealing with your own financial issues. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Was this the breakthrough David had predicted? So I've made a decision, she continued. Tyler and I are going to help you through this transition. We'll move in here temporarily while you get ready to sell the house. That way, you won't be alone, and we can make sure you're not taken advantage of by real estate agents or senior living salespeople. The hope died instantly. She wasn't showing remorse or respect. She was escalating her manipulation. Moving into my house would give them complete control over me and access to anything I might have hidden. That's very thoughtful, dear. But I'm not ready to make any big changes yet. Her facade cracked slightly. Mom, you can't keep living in denial. You're running out of money, and this house is too big for you. We're trying to help. I appreciate your concern, Jessica, but this is still my house and my decision. Her expression hardened completely. Mom, you're being selfish. Do you want to end up on the street? Do you want to be one of those old ladies who dies alone because she was too stubborn to accept help? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone I no longer recognized. The loving child who used to braid my hair and tell me I was the best mommy in the world had been replaced by someone who could threaten me with homelessness and death to get what she wanted. I think you should leave now, Jessica. Fine. But don't come crying to me when you lose everything because you were too proud to listen to people who actually care about you. After she left, I sat in David's chair and opened his letter again, reading the passage that had guided me through this entire ordeal. The greatest gift you can give someone is allowing them to face the consequences of their choices. Only then can they grow into the person they are capable of becoming. It was time for phase 3. 2 weeks later, Jessica called me sobbing. It was 8:30 on a Thursday morning, and I was sitting in my new Mercedes outside the spa, where I had just enjoyed a luxurious massage, paid for with money from David's reality account. Mom, she gasped between tears, we're being evicted. The landlord filed papers yesterday. We have 72 hours to come up with $4,800, or we're out on the street. I had been expecting this call. Patricia's surveillance had revealed that Jessica and Tyler had been living in a month-to-month rental, funded entirely by credit cards that were now maxed out. Their dream apartment in Brooklyn had never materialized. They couldn't secure the lease without proof of income or my financial backing. Oh my goodness, Jessica, that's terrible. What will you do? Mom, I need you to help us. I know you don't have much, but maybe you could borrow against the house. Just this once. I promise I'll pay you back when Tyler's photography business takes off. The irony was breathtaking. She was asking me to mortgage my home to save her from homelessness, while simultaneously pressuring me to sell that same home and move into assisted living. Sweetheart, I don't think I can qualify for a loan at my age. The bank would want to see income statements, and my finances are so complicated right now. Then what am I supposed to do? She screamed into the phone. Live in my car. Sleep in shelters. Is that what you want for your only daughter? I closed my eyes, remembering the cheap metal fork, the demands for apartment money, the cold calculation in her voice as she planned my future in assisted living. Jessica, I said quietly, I think it's time we had a serious conversation about our family situation. Can you meet me at Robert Hendrick's office tomorrow at 2 p.m.? I want to discuss my estate planning with you. Estate planning, Mom. I don't care about your will right now. I care about not being homeless next week. Trust me, dear. This conversation will address all of your concerns. Robert's office is at 450 Park Avenue, Suite 1200. Please don't bring Tyler. Why can't Tyler come? Because this is between mother and daughter, just you and me. The next afternoon, I arrived at Robert's office 30 minutes early. I had dressed carefully. The new Eileen Fisher suit from Bogdorf's, my grandmother's pearl necklace, and my wedding rings polished to perfection. I wanted to look like the successful, dignified woman I had always been, not the helpless widow Jessica believed me to be. Robert had transformed his conference room into a courtroom of evidence. Financial statements covered one wall, showing my real net worth of $1,247,000. Patricia's surveillance reports occupied another table, documenting every lie, manipulation, and cruel comment. The centerpiece was a large monitor displaying the text messages between Jessica and Tyler, where they referred to me as the ATM. Are you ready for this, Linda? Robert asked. I've been ready for months. Jessica arrived 20 minutes late, looking frazzled and desperate. She had clearly dressed to appear sympathetic, an old sundress, minimal makeup, and an expression of practiced vulnerability. Mom, thank God you're taking care of your estate planning. But can we talk about my eviction situation first? I found a lawyer who says I can fight it, but I need $2,000 for a retainer. Sit down, Jessica, Robert commanded in his courtroom voice. She looked surprised by his authoritative tone, but took a seat across from me at the conference table. Your mother asked me to arrange this meeting, Robert began, because she has some things she needs to share with you about her actual financial situation. Actual financial situation? What do you mean? I stood up and walked to the wall of financial statements. Jessica, for the past several months, you've believed that I was running out of money. You've pressured me to sell my home, move to assisted living, and use my assets to fund your lifestyle. But there's something you don't know. I turned to face her, seeing confusion and the first flickers of fear in her eyes. I'm not broke, Jessica. I never was. What do you mean? Robert clicked a remote, and the monitor displayed my bank statements. Your mother currently has $147,000 in assets, plus real estate worth another $875,000. She owns rental properties in California and Florida, investment portfolios, and cash accounts that generate more monthly income than most people earn at full-time jobs. Jessica stared at the screen, her mouth falling open. That's impossible. You showed me your bank statements. You had $2,800. I showed you one bank statement from one account that I emptied specifically for that purpose. Your father and I spent years building this wealth, and we kept it private because we wanted to teach you the value of money and hard work. You lied to me. No, Jessica. I simply didn't tell you everything. Just like you didn't tell me about calling me the ATM in your text messages with Tyler. Robert clicked again, and Tyler's messages filled the screen. Just keep playing the loving daughter card. She's so desperate for attention she'll pay for anything. Jessica's face went white. Where did you get those? The same way I got recordings of you and Tyler planning to put me in assisted living so you could access my money faster. The same way I documented every lie you told, every manipulation you attempted, and every cruel comment you made about your pathetic mother. I walked back to the table and sat down across from her, maintaining eye contact. 3 months ago, you gave me a cheap metal fork for Mother's Day while giving Tyler a Waldo $200 iPhone. When I questioned this, you told me I already had everything and that Tyler needed it more. Do you remember saying that? Mom, I can explain. You told me that my money should go to helping your generation instead of just sitting in my bank account. You pressured me to finance your apartment, your lifestyle, your boyfriend's fantasy business. You researched senior living facilities and calculated exactly how long my money would last. Comfortable with the idea that I would die on schedule, tears were streaming down Jessica's face now, but I could see they were tears of panic and humiliation, not genuine remorse. But worst of all, I continued, when you thought I was truly struggling financially, instead of offering to help me or get a job to support yourself, you saw it as an opportunity to manipulate me into selling my home and moving to an institution. Mom, please. I never meant Jessica, you called your 66-year-old mother selfish for not wanting to give up her home. You threatened me with homelessness and death to pressure me into compliance. You brought your boyfriend into my private financial business and allowed him to treat me with disrespect in my own home. Robert placed a thick folder in front of Jessica. This contains documentation of everything your mother just described. Text messages, recorded conversations, surveillance reports, and financial records showing exactly how much money she spent supporting your lifestyle. Jessica opened the folder with trembling hands. Her face grew paler as she read through page after page of evidence. The total amount your mother spent on you in the past year, Robert continued, was $47,300. This includes the European trip, rent assistance, car payments, phone bills, credit card payments, and various emergencies that always seem to require immediate financial assistance. Jessica, I said, leaning forward, I need you to understand something very clearly. I don't mind spending money on people I love, but love is a two-way relationship built on mutual respect and genuine care. What you've shown me isn't love, it's exploitation. She finally looked up from the folder, her eyes red and desperate. Mom, I'm sorry. I know I've made mistakes, but I love you. You're my mother. To you, Jessica. Because someone who loves their mother doesn't refer to her as an ATM. Someone who loves their mother doesn't pressure her to sell her home so they can fund their boyfriend's hobby. Someone who loves their mother doesn't threaten her with homelessness and death to get money. The room fell silent except for Jessica's quiet sobbing. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to learn what it means to be genuinely independent. No more money from me, no more paying your bills, no more financial safety net. You're going to get a job, pay your own rent, and discover what millions of people your age already know, that life requires work and responsibility. But the eviction, I'll be homeless. That's a consequence of your choices. Jessica, you chose to spend money you didn't have on a lifestyle you couldn't afford. Now you get to choose how to fix it. I stood up and gathered my purse. When you're ready to have a relationship based on mutual respect instead of financial dependency, call me. When you're ready to apologize, not because you need money, but because you genuinely understand how you've treated me, I'll listen. Mom, please don't leave me like this. I paused at the door. Jessica, for 3 months you believed I was a broke old woman with nowhere to turn. During that entire time, did you once offer to help me? Did you once suggest getting a job so you could support yourself and maybe help your struggling mother? Did you once treat me with the respect and kindness I deserve? She stared at me, unable to answer. That tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. The question now is, who do you want to become? 6 months later, I was sitting on the deck of my beachfront condo in Naples, in Florida, watching the sunset paint the Gulf of Mexico in shades of gold and crimson. David would have loved this view. In my lap was a letter that had arrived that morning, forwarded from my Westchester address. The return address read, Jessica Matthews, with a Brooklyn postmark I didn't recognize. I hadn't heard from my daughter since that devastating afternoon in Robert's office. Patricia's final surveillance report, delivered 3 weeks after our confrontation, had painted a picture of complete collapse, followed by what appeared to be genuine reconstruction. Jessica and Tyler had been evicted as scheduled. Their relationship had ended within days. Apparently, Tyler's devotion evaporated the moment he realized there would be no more family money. Jessica had moved in with her college roommate, Amanda, and Pat Dickinson, and for the first time since graduating, gotten a real job at a marketing firm in Manhattan. According to Patricia's sources, Jessica was working long hours, taking the subway instead of Ubers, and living on a budget that would have shocked her former self. More importantly, she had stopped talking about me entirely to her friends. No more complaints about stubborn old mothers or calculations about inheritance timelines. Now, holding her letter in the Florida sunshine, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Genuine curiosity about what my daughter might have to say. Dear Mom, it began in handwriting that looked more careful and deliberate than her usual scrawl. I know I have no right to expect you to read this, much less respond to it, but I need to try to explain what I've learned about myself over these past months. When you walked out of that lawyer's office, I was furious. I told myself you had been manipulative and cruel, that you had set me up to fail. that no loving mother would humiliate her daughter that way. For weeks, I was consumed with anger and self-pity. But as I struggled with real problems, finding a job, making rent, figuring out how to eat on $20 a week, I started to understand something terrible about who I had become. I had turned into someone who saw you not as a person worthy of love and respect, but as a source of money to solve my problems. Mom, I called you an ATM. I researched senior living facilities not because I was worried about your well-being, but because I wanted access to your money faster. When I thought you were broke, instead of offering to help you, I saw it as an inconvenience to my plans. I don't know how I became that person. I don't know when I started believing I was entitled to your sacrifices without offering anything meaningful in return. But I know that person was someone I'm ashamed to remember. Getting a real job has taught me something I should have learned years ago. How hard it is to earn money, how satisfying it feels to pay your own bills, and how much strength it takes to build a life through your own efforts. Every paycheck I earn, I think about the $47,300 you spent on me last year, and I realize that represents months of someone's labor and sacrifice. I also understand now what you were trying to teach me. Love isn't about what you can get from someone. It's about what you give, how you treat them, and whether you see them as a whole person worthy of respect. Mom, I'm writing this letter not because I need anything from you. I don't. But because I owe you the biggest apology of my life. I'm sorry for treating you like an ATM instead of my mother. I'm sorry for pressuring you to give up your home and your independence for my convenience. I'm sorry for every cruel word, every manipulation, and every moment I made you feel taken for granted. Most of all, I'm sorry it took losing you completely for me to realize how much I had already lost through my own selfishness. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a relationship. I certainly don't expect money. But I wanted you to know that your daughter, the one you raised with love and sacrifice, is still in here somewhere. And she's trying very hard to become someone worthy of the mother who gave her everything. If you're willing, I'd like to take you to lunch sometime. Not somewhere expensive. I know a great diner in Brooklyn where the coffee is 75 cents and the pie is homemade. I'd like to hear about your life and tell you about mine without asking for anything except the privilege of your company. Love, Jessica P. S. I kept the metal fork. I put it on my kitchen counter as a reminder of who I never want to be again. I read the letter 3 times, sitting in the warm Florida sunshine with tears streaming down my face. They weren't tears of sadness, but of something I had thought lost forever, hope. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Dr. Williams, calling for one of our monthly check-ins. Linda, how are you feeling today? Complicated, I admitted, telling her about Jessica's letter. What do you think? She asked. I think she's learned something real. The letter isn't asking for anything. No money, no immediate reconciliation, just the possibility of a relationship based on mutual respect. And how does that feel? I looked out at the Gulf, where pelicans were diving for fish in the golden water. It feels like the education finally took. That evening, I called Jessica's number. Her voice was cautious when she answered. Hi, Mom. Hello, sweetheart. I got your letter. There was a long pause. I wasn't sure you'd read it. I read it 3 times. Jessica, I want you to know something. I never stopped loving you, even during our worst moments. But I couldn't continue a relationship that was damaging us both. I know, Mom. And you were right to stop it. Are you free next Saturday? I'm flying back to New York for a few days. And I know a great diner in Brooklyn where I hear the pie is homemade. I could hear her smile through the phone. I'd love that more than anything. After we hung up, I walked out onto my deck and raised a glass of wine toward the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. David, I whispered, I think our daughter is finally growing up. The education had been painful for both of us. But as I sat in my beautiful Florida home, surrounded by the life I had built through decades of hard work and careful planning, I realized something profound. I had reclaimed not just my dignity and my money, but my identity as Linda Matthews, a woman worthy of respect, love, and genuine relationships. Whether Jessica and I could rebuild our relationship remained to be seen. But for the first time in years, I was optimistic about the future. And if she had truly learned the lessons we had tried to teach her, We might just have a chance to become the mother and daughter we were always meant to be. The sunset faded into night, and I went inside to plan my trip back to New York, carrying with me the most valuable lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to discover their own strength